you go to Kusadasi, Turkey, you must go to these places. This was one of the most spectacular excursions we went on. The first stop was the House of Virgin Mary. They restored this home, which they called the House of Virgin Mary. We're not allowed to take any pictures inside of it, but it was beautiful. Once you came out, you could light a candle or else you could write a prayer on that wall. They had a little cistern here, which shows that there was a little town. They also had the spring, which they say has holy water. And those who didn't get holy water got coffee. Our next stop was the ancient town of Ephesus. At one point, this town that's an hour away from the water used to be a port city. Paul started a church here, and as you can see, there was a fish on the ground. That fish used to be the sign that Christians lived in that area. The town of Ephesus is truly a spectacular ruin. At one point, there used to be 200,000 people who lived here. We saw the little houses as well as the remnants of daily life. At this point, we were just walking down the streets of Ephesus. In the middle of town was a lot of their gods. This is Nike, and you can see her swoosh. Then she showed us the center of town, which was the fountain. As we went further and further into Ephesus, it just kept going on. Now, if you go into Ephesus, make sure you buy the tickets for the terrace houses. This will give you great insight into daily life. The terraces are completely covered so that they're protecting it while they're restoring them. It was incredible to walk through their tiny streets with all the arches. Then you could see the pillars to their home, and you could see the fountains and the mosaics all over the ground. Here's an example of one of the fountains that they would have had. Now, amongst all of the houses, they also had baths, and this was one of the large ones that they had. In the distance, you can see the mountains, and they all come together where the valley would have been. Outside of the terraces, there were more public baths, and this was the library. The most spectacular place was this theater, which held up to 25,000 people. The Apostle Paul was said to have been here. We went for a walk under the theater, which is where the famous people would have come in, but also where they kept the animals in cages behind here. Some of the fights that went on in this theater were a little gruesome. And here's the cages. After this, we walked away from the theater, and as you can see, you could have seen what was happening in the theater from about 1 kilometer away. Next, we went to visit the very small rooms of the Temple of Artemis. This was one of the best days visiting this UNESCO World Heritage site.